The storm came without warning. Dark clouds rolling over the quiet human colony world. Wind howled through the dusty hills and rain hammered against the metal roofs of scattered farmhouses. In the middle of that chaos, a silver cargo shuttle descended from the sky, shaking the ground as it landed near an old wooden barn. Its lights flashed once, twice, and then it powered down. Inside the shuttle, something moved. A tall metal crate hissed open, and a young alien woman stepped out. Her skin shimmered pale blue under the emergency lights, and her wide eyes darted around in confusion. She wore a thin wedding gown of silver fabric, still tagged with a shipping code. Around her wrist blinked a bracelet showing strange alien letters. The words on the tag said, "Delivery for Groom W34891, Planet Vereen." But this was not Vereen. This was a lonely human colony on the edge of known space. Before she could understand her mistake, the shuttle's automated voice spoke, "Delivery complete." Then the door closed behind her and the ship lifted off into the storm. The alien woman screamed, running toward the light, but the shuttle disappeared into the clouds. She stood there, trembling, rain soaking through her gown. For a long moment, she thought she'd been abandoned on a dead world. Then, through the downpour, she saw a small house with one dim light glowing inside. Inside that house sat Jacob, a man in his mid-30s with rough hands and tired eyes. His right leg was bound with metal braces. Once he had been a mechanic working in spaceports, but an accident had left him crippled. Now he lived quietly with his 8-year-old son Eli on a small farm, far from the noise of the cities. The night was cold. Jacob was repairing an old heating unit when he heard a loud knock at the door. He froze. No one ever came this far out at night. When he opened the door, lightning flashed, and there she was. A tall alien woman stood in the rain, trembling. Her skin glowed faintly under the storm light, and her silver dress clung to her like glass. Jacob blinked, unsure if he was dreaming. "Miss, are you lost?" he asked. She looked at him with wide eyes, her lips shaking. "You human?" she whispered in broken English. "Yeah," Jacob said, frowning. "You need help?" She stepped inside slowly, glancing around like a frightened animal. Her bare feet left glowing blue footprints on the wooden floor. She seemed confused, scared, and exhausted. Jacob gave her a towel and a blanket. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She hesitated. "Lyra," she said softly. "Well, Lyra," Jacob said, "I don't know how you got here, but you're safe for now." Later that night, after Lyra warmed herself by the heater, Jacob examined the strange tag she carried. It looked official, some kind of delivery form, but written in alien symbols. The only word he could read was bride contract. His brow furrowed. Was she sold to someone? Or was this some kind of mistake? Lyra tried to explain, but her English was poor. She kept saying, "I was sent to husband, not here. Wrong star, wrong man." Jacob didn't know what to say. He just poured her a cup of tea and smiled. "Well then," he said quietly, "until we figure this out, you can stay here. My son won't mind the company." Lyra looked at him strangely, as if she didn't understand kindness. On her world, humans were only a rumor. Strange, dangerous beings who fought wars among stars. But this one, this crippled man, was gentle. He spoke softly, moved carefully, and looked at her not with ownership but with concern. When Eli woke up and saw her, he gasped. "Papa, is she an angel?" Lyra smiled for the first time, kneeling to his level. "No angel," she said, touching his cheek. "Just lost." Outside, thunder cracked again. The power flickered and the radio began to buzz. A voice crackled through the static. "Attention, cargo number 421 missing. Priority alert. Alien bride misdelivered. Do not approach. Dangerous genetic code." "Repeat, do not approach." Jacob froze. Lyra's eyes widened in fear. "What did they say?" she whispered. Jacob turned off the radio. "Nothing important," he lied. But deep inside, he knew something was wrong. Whoever had sent her might be coming to take her back. And if they did, it wouldn't be gentle. The storm grew worse outside. Lightning lit the horizon, and for a second, Jacob saw something moving far off in the rain, shapes mechanical and dark, scanning the valley. He closed the door tight and locked it. Inside the small house, the alien bride sat quietly beside his son, holding the child's hand as he drifted to sleep. Her glowing eyes watched the window, full of fear and mystery. Jacob didn't know it yet, but the moment she stepped onto his porch, His quiet life was over forever. Morning came slowly, painting the sky with soft gold after the wild storm. The ground was muddy, the air cold, and the smell of rain still hung everywhere. Inside the small wooden house, Jacob limped toward the window, his metal leg brace creaking with each step. He looked outside. The world was calm again, but something had changed forever. On the couch near the fire sat Lyra, the alien woman from the night before. She had fallen asleep sitting up, her silver hair glowing faintly in the morning light. Beside her, little Eli was curled up under a blanket, holding her hand even in sleep. The sight made Jacob pause. His son hadn't slept that peacefully in months. He brewed some coffee and watched quietly. When Lyra finally opened her eyes, she blinked at the strange warmth of the room. For a moment she seemed lost, then she smiled weakly. "Good morning," Jacob said softly. Lyra tilted her head. "Good morning," she repeated, her voice slow, careful, like she was learning each sound. Jacob handed her a cup of tea. She looked at it, unsure what to do, then copied him and took a sip. Her face brightened. "Hot, but nice," Jacob smiled. "You'll get used to it." Over the next few days, the storm cut off all communication with the outside world. The radio only gave static, and no ships flew across the gray sky. Jacob's small farm was isolated. It was just him, his son, and the strange alien woman who had landed in his life like an accident of fate. Lyra began to help around the house. She was clumsy at first. She didn't know how to use human tools or cook food that wasn't glowing blue, but she learned fast. She cleaned, cooked, and even repaired broken lights using small pieces of metal that she bent with her glowing hands. Eli followed her everywhere, asking endless questions. "Why is your hair shiny? Why are your eyes silver? Do you have cats on your planet?" Lyra laughed softly. "No cats, but small flying things. They sing when the moons rise." Eli's eyes lit up. "I want to see that." Lyra smiled, a bit sad. "Maybe one day when Sky is safe." Jacob noticed how quickly Eli grew close to her. He hadn't seen his son this happy since his accident, the one that left both of them wounded. Eli had lost the strength in his legs after that crash, and even doctors couldn't help. But now he smiled again, laughed again, even tried standing more often just to show Lyra his toys. One evening, while the rain tapped softly on the windows, Lyra was telling Eli about her home. She spoke of crystal forests, silver rivers, and blue moons that glowed like lanterns. Eli listened wide-eyed, his hand resting on hers. Suddenly, the mark on her wrist began to glow faintly, soft and warm. Eli gasped. "It's shining." Lyra looked frightened. "No, it should not." But the light didn't stop. It spread gently over Eli's small fingers like warm sunlight. Jacob rushed over. "What's happening?" Lyra looked at him, her voice shaking. "I don't know." He touched my mark. "It reacts." Then something incredible happened. Eli's legs twitched. He tried to move them, and this time they obeyed. Slowly, painfully, but they moved. Jacob froze, staring in disbelief. "Eli, you're standing," he whispered. Lyra's mark faded, leaving only silence and the sound of the rain. Eli wobbled but stood on his own for a few seconds before falling back into Jacob's arms, laughing. "Papa, I did it. I really did it." Lyra stepped back, eyes wide and scared. I did not want to harm." "Harm?" Jacob said, still holding his son tightly. "You just gave him something no doctor could hope." But deep inside, Lyra was trembling. The mark on her wrist wasn't just decoration. It was a royal symbol of her kind, a forbidden power that only the ruling bloodline carried. If someone found out she had used it, they would hunt her again. That night, while Jacob fixed a light outside, Lyra stood at the window staring at the stars. Her eyes reflected sadness and fear. She whispered in her language, "Please, don't find me. Not yet." Behind her, Eli slept peacefully for the first time in months. Jacob limped in, wiping sweat from his forehead. "You did good today," he said. Eli's smiling again. "It's been a long time." Lyra nodded, her voice quiet. "He is special. His heart strong." Jacob smiled, but his gaze stayed on her glowing wrist. "And you, Lyra? There's more to you than you let on, isn't there?" She froze, eyes meeting his. Before she could answer, the radio suddenly crackled to life. A robotic voice spoke. "Tracking signal found. Target is alive. Preparing retrieval." Lyra's face turned pale blue with fear. Jacob turned toward her, eyes narrowing. "What are they talking about?" he asked. Lyra whispered, almost crying. They found me. The wind outside began to rise again, shaking the windows. Jacob reached for his old rifle, his voice calm but cold. Then they'll have to go through me first. The night was heavy with silence. Outside, the wind whispered through the broken fence. Inside the small farmhouse, only the crackling of the fire filled the air. Lyra sat near the window, staring at her wrist where the faint mark had stopped glowing. Her hands trembled as if she carried something too big to explain. Jacob watched her from across the room. He had questions, too many, but he didn't want to frighten her more. His son Eli was fast asleep on the couch, his face peaceful for the first time in years. That peace was something Jacob didn't want to lose again. He took a slow breath. Lyra, he said softly, those men on the radio. They're looking for you, aren't they? She didn't move. Her silver hair fell across her face as she whispered, Yes. Who are they? He asked. Her voice cracked. Hunters. From my world. Jacob leaned forward, his leg brace creaking. Why are they after you? You didn't do anything wrong. Lyra looked up, her eyes filled with something between fear and guilt. I was born wrong, she said. Born with power I never wanted. She stood and walked toward the fire, her eyes lost in the dancing flames. My people live under a great empire, she continued. Only one family is allowed to carry the royal mark, the mark that heals, the mark that destroys. My family was that line. Jacob frowned. You mean you're royalty? Lyra nodded slowly. I was the youngest daughter of the royal house. After the war, my people lost. My family was taken and I was sold as a bride to a man I never met. She looked down at her glowing wrist. This mark is the reason they want me dead. If the Empire finds out I survived, it could start another rebellion. They call me a danger, a symbol of hope. Jacob didn't speak for a long time. The truth hit him like a storm. The woman sitting in his small farmhouse wasn't just a lost bride. She was a fugitive princess hunted across the stars. Finally, he said, If that's true, then we can't stay here. They'll find us. Lyra shook her head. No ship will come while the storm fields are active. But once the clouds clear, they will come. Jacob looked at Eli, sleeping soundly. Then we'll protect him. And you. Lyra turned, her voice sharp. You don't understand. They will burn everything. They will not stop for one human man. Jacob smiled faintly, a tired, brave smile. Then they don't know humans very well. The next morning, the air was quiet again. Jacob worked outside, fixing the power lines destroyed by the storm. Lyra watched him through the window. Despite his crippled leg, he never gave up. Every movement was filled with quiet strength. He wasn't rich, powerful, or trained to fight, but his will was iron. Eli followed Lyra around the kitchen, laughing as she tried to cook human food. She was learning, burning most of it, but still trying. For a moment, it felt like a real family. The sound of laughter filled the house that had once been silent for years. But then, a low beep came from Lyra's bracelet. She froze. What's that sound? Eli asked. Her eyes widened. They are tracing me again. She rushed to the door, looking at the sky. Dark dots moved among the clouds, small scout drones sweeping the valley. Jacob limped out after her, holding his rifle. They found us? He asked. Lyra nodded, panic rising in her voice. They send watchers first. Soldiers come after. Jacob's jaw tightened. Then we have to move before they do. Move where? She asked, almost pleading. They will follow the signal in my mark. I cannot hide from it. Jacob looked at her wrist, thinking. Then we'll break it. Her eyes went wide. You cannot. It is bound to my blood. He nodded. Maybe, but I can jam it. He dragged out an old metal case from the barn, a signal jammer he had used long ago to keep raiders off communication lines. He set it up and switched it on. The air hummed softly, and the blinking light on Lyra's bracelet flickered, then went dark. Lyra stared in shock. You did it? Jacob smiled. Sometimes old junk still works. For the first time, Lyra laughed, a soft musical sound that made Jacob's chest ache. But the moment didn't last long. Far away, one of the drones changed direction, scanning the interference zone. A robotic voice transmitted back to the fleet. Signal lost. Possible hiding ground located. Prepare retrieval team. Lyra felt a shiver run through her. They will come, she said quietly. They always come. Jacob placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we'll be ready. That night after Eli went to sleep, Jacob sat near the fire cleaning his old rifle. Lyra watched him, her heart torn. "You would fight for someone you just met?" she asked softly. Jacob looked at her, his face calm. "You're under my roof. That makes you family, and family is worth fighting for." Lyra didn't reply. She just stared at him, eyes glimmering in the firelight. For the first time since she was captured, she felt something strange, a sense of safety. But outside, in the dark sky above, lights moved silently, 3 alien ships breaking through the storm clouds. The hunters had arrived. Rain returned that night, falling harder than before, as if the sky itself wanted to hide what was coming. The wind howled through the valley, shaking trees and rattling the old roof of Jacob's farmhouse. But inside the home there was no fear, only quiet preparation. Jacob moved from room to room, checking windows, locking doors, setting up old traps near the barn. His limp slowed him, but not his focus. Every motion was steady. Every step carried weight. Lyra watched silently, her hands shaking as she held a kitchen knife. Not for cooking this time, but for defense. "Are you sure they'll come tonight?" she asked in a soft voice. Jacob looked up, loading his rifle. "They're not the patient kind. The storm's clearing. This is the perfect time for them to strike." Outside, Eli slept peacefully, unaware of the danger. His toys lay scattered near the fireplace, and his favorite blanket was half dragged off the couch. He had no idea that the world outside was turning into a battlefield. Then it happened. A deep hum rolled through the earth. Lights appeared above the trees, cold white beams that cut through the rain like knives. A loud hiss echoed across the valley as a sleek alien dropship landed near the barn, steam rising from its sides. From it stepped 4 armored figures, taller than humans, dressed in dark metal suits with red visors. They moved like shadows, silent and fast. Inside their helmets, they weren't soldiers. They were retrievers trained to bring back runaways alive. Or dead. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She backed away from the window, her voice trembling. "They're here." The black eyes, they don't speak. They don't stop. Jacob looked at her. "Then we don't stop either." The first retriever reached the door and raised a glowing hand. Before it could blast through, one of Jacob's old traps triggered. An electric spark burst from the wall, knocking the alien back. It roared, not in pain but in surprise. They hadn't expected a crippled human to be ready for them. Jacob fired from the upstairs window. The shot hit one retriever's shoulder, pushing it back. But they advanced quickly, responding with pulse blasts that shattered part of the wall. Lyra grabbed Eli and ran to the hidden cellar door beneath the kitchen.
"Stay down there," Jacob shouted, "no matter what you hear."
She nodded, holding Eli tightly as they disappeared into the shadows below. Outside, rain mixed with smoke. 2 retrievers moved toward the front, the other 2 circled behind. Jacob had to move fast. He slid down the stairs, firing again. One blast hit a retriever in the chest, sparking blue light, but it didn't fall. It just turned toward him, angry now. They burst through the door. Jacob ducked, rolling across the floor, pain shooting through his leg. He pulled himself behind the couch and fired again. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the room. Then, silence. Jacob coughed, trying to reload. He could barely see through the haze. One of the retrievers stepped over the couch. Its red visor stared down at him. It raised a glowing arm. Jacob was out of ammo. He shut his eyes. But before the alien could fire, a bright blue light flashed across the room. Lyra stood in the kitchen doorway, her mark glowing brighter than ever, casting light across every wall. Her body shimmered, her eyes glowing silver. "I told you," she said in her own language, voice full of fire. "I would not go back." She raised her hand, and the glowing mark sent out a wave of energy, slamming into the retrievers. They flew backward, crashing into walls and furniture. Outside, the 2 behind the house tried to enter through the back, but Lyra walked forward, her steps silent. Her hair floated as if wind danced around her alone. She whispered a word. The air around her exploded in a ring of light, sending the last 2 flying across the mud. Rain turned to mist. The ship's lights blinked. Inside their helmets, the retrievers stared in shock. One finally spoke into his communicator. "Subject has awakened. Orders?" The reply came cold and quick. "Retreat. She's too dangerous now." The ship lifted off, rising fast into the sky, vanishing into the clouds as if it had never been there. Silence returned. The barn was smoking. The front door was blown apart. Jacob sat on the floor, breathing hard, holding his side. Lyra knelt beside him, touching his chest. Her mark glowed softly now, healing. He looked at her, half smiling. "You could have told me you were a walking lightning storm," he joked weakly. Lyra didn't laugh. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I never used it like that before. Not since I was a child." Jacob took her hand. "Well, I'm glad you remembered." Behind them, the cellar door creaked open. Eli peeked out. "Is it over?" Jacob smiled. "For now." But high above, in the blackness of space, a new message echoed through a deep chamber. "She has revealed herself. Send the royal fleet." The fire in the fireplace burned low, casting long shadows on the walls of the broken house. Rain had stopped, but smoke still rose from the damaged walls and shattered furniture. Jacob sat at the kitchen table, holding a warm cloth to his ribs. His body ached, but he was alive, and so was Eli. Across from him, Lyra sat silently, her glowing wrist now hidden beneath her sleeve. Her face was calm, but her eyes were full of storms. Eli walked over and gently touched her arm. "You protected us," he said softly. Lyra smiled and brushed back his hair. "You're worth protecting." Jacob leaned forward. "They're gone for now, but they'll come back." "You said a royal fleet?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, those who chased me before. They were just hunters. The fleet belongs to the Emperor. If they come, they will not ask questions. They will take me or destroy everything around me." Jacob stared at her, silent. Then he asked the question he'd been holding inside. "Why? Why would they send an entire fleet? For you?" Lyra stood and walked to the window. The sky was clear now, stars blinking far above like distant eyes. "I wasn't just a daughter of the royal house," she said. "I was born with the highest blood mark, one that had not appeared in 1,000 years. My people believed the child would bring balance, hope, healing." She looked down at her glowing wrist. "But when I was 5, the empire changed. The old rulers were overthrown. My family was called traitors. They killed my brothers, my sisters, my parents." Jacob's eyes widened. "You saw that?" Lyra nodded. "I hid. One loyal guard smuggled me away. He used his last breath to put me on a slave ship. He thought I would be safe if I disappeared." She touched the small jewel on her bracelet. "I was sold as a bride, labeled, tagged, delivered like a box. But they made a mistake." Jacob gave a small, tired smile. "Best mistake of my life." Lyra turned around, tears in her silver eyes. "You don't understand. I carry a signal in my blood. It calls to those who seek it. I can heal, but I also destroy. If the Emperor learns I live, he will wipe this planet clean to hide the truth." Jacob stood, limping to her side. "Then we won't let him." Lyra shook her head. "I'm not worth your lives." "You're wrong," Jacob said firmly. "You saved my son. You've already given me more than anyone else ever has. That means something." Eli stepped forward and took her hand. "You're my family now." Lyra's lips trembled. "I've never had a family that chose me." That night they made a plan. Jacob used his old mechanic tools to modify the signal jammer. Lyra helped strengthen the field with her alien energy. Together they built a barrier around the house, one that might hide her presence from space, but it wouldn't last forever. The next morning a message came through the broken radio. Static faded and a robotic voice spoke. "Attention. Planetary lockdown declared. Unknown energy signature located. All ships grounded. Surrender the marked one or face orbital cleansing." Jacob stared at the radio. "They're going to wipe out the whole valley." Lyra turned pale. "They mean it. If I stay here, all of you will die." Eli stepped forward. "We'll run, right?" Jacob put a hand on his shoulder. "No, son. We're done running." They drove into town using Jacob's old transport. The people of the valley had seen the lights in the sky. Rumors spread fast. Whispers of an alien woman. Glowing blue. Soldiers falling like leaves. When Jacob stood before them and told them the truth about Lyra, about the fleet, about the threat, they didn't run. They didn't panic. They asked, "What do we need to do?" Lyra looked at them in shock. "You're not afraid?" An old farmer stepped forward. "You protected one of ours. That's enough," another added. "They think they can scare humans? Let them try." Back at the house, Jacob stared at the sky. "They want war. We'll give them a surprise." He turned to Lyra. "Is there anything else you haven't told me?"
Anything else you can do?
Lyra hesitated, then lifted her wrist and pulled something from beneath the bracelet. a small crystal pulsing like a heartbeat. "What's that?" Jacob asked. Her voice was calm but heavy. "The last piece of my mother's power. It can awaken the full mark in me, but once I use it, I can never go back to being normal." Jacob looked into her eyes, then save it for the right moment. Lyra closed her fist around the crystal. "I will. When my people come, they'll see I'm not running anymore." Above them, the first shadow of a battleship began to cover the stars. The stars disappeared, one by one. They vanished behind a massive alien warship that entered orbit above the colony world. Its dark hull blocked the sky, casting a long shadow across fields, homes, and mountains. From a distance, it looked like a floating city made of metal and silence. The people of the valley had never seen anything like it. Inside the farmhouse, Jacob stood by the window, staring up at the sky with steady eyes. His old hands clenched the railing tightly. "That thing's not just here for show," he said. Lyra stood beside him, holding the small glowing crystal close to her chest. Her mark pulsed slowly, responding to the ship above. "That's the Emperor's flagship," she whispered. "If it's here, they don't want to fight. They want to erase everything." Down in town, word spread like fire. Farmers, traders, engineers, and even children gathered in silence, watching the giant ship float like a silent god above their world. "They're not just here for her," someone said. "They want to destroy us all," another whispered. But no one ran. Instead, tools were dropped and old weapons were pulled from basements. Tractors were turned into barriers, metal sheets into shields. A colony of simple people stood up, ready to defend a woman who was never meant to be theirs. Back at the farm, Jacob worked with a welding torch, reinforcing the front wall of the house. Lyra watched, holding Eli close. "Why do they follow you?" she asked softly. Jacob paused. "Because they've lost enough. Same as you. They just needed a reason to stand up." He looked at her. "And you gave them that." Lyra lowered her head. "But I didn't ask for this." "No," Jacob said. "You didn't. But you didn't run either." A sudden high-pitched noise filled the air. 3 smaller dropships broke away from the flagship and screamed through the sky, heading toward the surface like burning comets. One landed near the river, one near the hills, and one right outside Jacob's farm. The ground shook. Dust flew. Out stepped tall alien soldiers in black armor, each one holding an energy blade that hummed like thunder. But they didn't attack right away. A hologram flickered in the air, an image of the Emperor's voice, a cold, pale alien with golden eyes. "Return the royal fugitive now. This is your last warning. Her life or your world." Lyra stepped forward. She was trembling, but her eyes were calm. "I will go," she said. Jacob turned sharply. "No, you won't." "If I don't," she said, "they'll burn this place to ash." Eli rushed forward, grabbing her leg. "No, don't go. You're my mama now." Lyra dropped to her knees, hugging him tightly, tears in her silver eyes. "And I will never stop being your mama, even if I'm far away." Jacob stared at the crystal in her hand. "You said once it could awaken your full power. If that's true, why don't you use it?" Lyra hesitated. "Because once I do, I won't be the same. I'll be part of the old world again. A weapon, not a person." Jacob stepped closer. "Lyra, you're already more than that. You've become part of something bigger, our world." She looked at him, looked at Eli, then at the people gathered behind the fences, ready to fight for her. Her hand tightened around the crystal. "Then I will fight for this world too." She crushed the crystal in her palm. Light exploded, her eyes turned white gold, her body lifted slightly off the ground. The glowing mark on her wrist expanded, climbing her arm across her neck, lighting her skin like living fire. The air around her vibrated. Plants near her feet began to bloom, even in the cold wind. Eli whispered, "She's glowing like the stars." Lyra's voice echoed, not loud, but deep, ancient. "I am the last daughter of the High House, and I will not be taken again." The alien soldiers aimed their weapons. Lyra raised one hand. A wave of pure energy pulsed from her body, pushing the soldiers back like paper in the wind. Their blades shattered, their armor cracked. The Emperor's hologram flickered, showing a face full of shock and rage. "Then die with them," he screamed. The flagship's weapons glowed red, powering up to fire on the entire colony. Jacob stood beside Lyra, rifle in hand. "If we're going down together." But just then, A second ship burst through the clouds, larger than the Emperor's, shaped like a steel bird, the human defense cruiser. A voice echoed across every radio, every speaker, every ear. "This is Earth's Shield Command. You will not harm our people, or those under our care." Lyra stared at the sky in disbelief. Jacob smiled, shoulders relaxing. "Told you we weren't alone." Above, the battle for the planet was about to begin. But this time, humanity had shown up. The sky burned with fire and light. Above the small colony world, two giant warships faced each other in orbit, the dark blade of the Emperor's flagship, and the silver wings of the human defense cruiser. Below, on the surface, people stared up in silence. Farmers, children, engineers, and elders all stood together under the open sky. Inside the farmhouse, Jacob stood at the broken porch, rifle still in hand, while Eli clutched Lyra's cloak, his eyes wide with fear and hope. And beside them, no longer afraid, stood Lyra, her skin glowing with a soft golden light, her hair lifting in the wind, and the ancient mark now fully alive along her arms and neck. She was not just a bride anymore, not just a fugitive, she was a symbol, a flame the Empire had tried to smother. The human commander's voice came through every speaker. "This planet is under human protection. You will not fire." The Emperor's reply came seconds later, cold, bitter. "You protect a liar, a traitor. That is an act of war." "Then so be it," the human replied. The air shimmered. The first blasts fired from the flagship, crashing against Earth's defenses. The sky lit up like a storm. Above the clouds, ships clashed, lasers and cannons shaking the heavens. But down on the ground, something else stirred. The Emperor had not given up. 3 more dropships launched, and from them came his elite guards, larger, faster, crueler than the last. They landed just outside the valley and began marching toward the town. Jacob turned to Lyra. "You should go with the cruiser. They'll keep you safe." Lyra shook her head. "I won't run again." He stared at her. "Then what are you going to do?" Lyra looked down at Eli, who smiled up at her. Then she looked at the people gathering near the fences. Her people now. "I will protect what I love." Lyra walked to the center of the field as the enemy marched closer. She closed her eyes. Her glowing mark pulsed once. And then, a ring of light spread out from her body, spreading across the valley like a warm wave. Where the light touched, grass grew taller, broken fences mended, cracked walls healed. People gasped as pain left their bodies. Wounds closed. Tired hearts filled with courage. But the light came with a cost. Lyra's knees buckled. She dropped to the ground, her hands pressed into the earth. The mark burned brighter than ever, but her strength was fading. Jacob ran to her side. "You're burning out," he cried. Lyra smiled faintly. "My mark was made to give, not to take. It's doing what it was born to do." The elite guards reached the valley, and they met a wall of people, humans with farming tools, scrap armor, and fierce eyes. They stood between the Empire and a woman who had once been delivered like a package and had become family. The guards charged. The colony fought, and above it all, Lyra stood again, one last time. She lifted both hands. Her voice, echoing strong, rang out in a language older than stars. A golden storm burst from her body, reaching to the skies. It hit the Emperor's flagship. Shields broke. Engines failed. Lights across the ship dimmed. Inside the flagship, the Emperor fell to his knees, coughing. "It's not possible." His own ship was rejecting him. The mark she carried was older, stronger. It had overpowered his control. He slammed a fist on his throne. "Retreat. All forces, retreat now." The fleet pulled back, dragging their broken pride with them. On the surface, silence followed. Then cheers, cries of joy, tears. Eli ran to Lyra and hugged her tightly, but her body had gone still. "Lyra?" She was breathing, barely. Her mark had faded to a dull glow. Jacob fell to his knees beside her. "You saved everyone. Don't leave now." Lyra opened her eyes slowly. Her voice was weak but peaceful. "I gave them hope," she whispered. "That's enough." Jacob took her hand. "No, you gave us more than that. You gave us you." Eli placed something on her chest, his favorite toy, a small wooden star. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Come back." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, her mark pulsed once more, soft, gentle, alive. Her chest rose. She took a deeper breath. The people cheered again, but softer this time. With respect. With love, weeks later, the colony rebuilt quickly. Earth's cruiser stayed in orbit guarding the skies. The Empire did not return, and the story of the alien bride who saved a world spread from planet to planet, told in whispers and songs. In front of the house, Jacob sat on the porch with his leg resting up. Eli played with a wooden sword in the field, and Lyra walked barefoot through the grass, sunlight dancing across her silver hair. No longer hiding, no longer afraid, no longer alone, she looked at Jacob, then at the sky. "I was sent to the wrong planet," she said. "Delivered to the wrong door," Jacob smiled. "Or maybe, the stars just sent you where you were needed most." Lyra took his hand, her voice soft. This home.